And the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons, and the money changers sitting there. And making a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and oxen. And he poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. And he told those who sold the pigeons, "Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." John 2, verses 13 through 17. Let's look closely at what our Lord did in this episode John recorded for us. We read in verses 13 through 14, "The Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. And he found in the temple those who sold oxen and sheep and doves, and the money changers doing business." The critical words in this verse are, "in the temple." The oxen, the sheep, the doves, and so forth were being brought and sold in the temple. And the money changers were practicing their trade there. If these activities had been going on outside the temple, there is every reason to believe that Jesus would have done nothing. But he took issue with the fact that these things were going on inside the temple. At the Passover, every pilgrim was required to sacrifice an animal. However, it was very difficult for the people who came to Jerusalem from the outer villages of Israel to bring their livestock with them. It was much easier for them to purchase the animals that was necessary for the sacrifices when they arrived in Jerusalem. Prior to this time, the booths for the sale of the animals and exchanging of the money had been set up across the Kidron Valley, up on the slopes of the Mount of Olives, significantly removed from the temple complex. But by Jesus' time, for the sake of convenience, the outer court, the court of the Gentiles, had been transformed from a place of worship and prayer to a place of commerce. Thus, when Jesus came into the house of God and saw it was being used for something other than that for which it had been consecrated, he fashioned his whip and took action. We read in verse 17, "Zeal for your house will consume me." But it wasn't simply zeal for the temple that motivated Jesus. It was the zeal for the activity the temple was designed to accommodate, the worship of God. Imagine if you went to church on Sunday morning and went into the sanctuary to pray, but you couldn't focus on your thoughts because of the loud and persistent bleating of sheep and goats. That's what was going on in the temple. Yes, people's needs were being met. I'm sure the temple authorities were saying, "We're just trying to be relevant. We're being seeker sensitive for those who can't bring their lambs from home, who need their money exchanged." But in their effort to make these procedures easy and convenient for the people, they had impacted the people's ability to worship. The truth we need to grasp from this incident is one that has almost completely vanished from the landscape of contemporary Christianity. It is the truth that God is particular about how he is to be approached in the sanctuary. Jesus said to his contemporaries, "This is holy ground. This is a place for prayer. This is a place for adoration and for worship. Take your animals, take your produce, and go across the street. This is my Father's house." It is a serious thing to impede his worship.